Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming tonight. For those of you all don't know, I'm Britt. I'm the community manager here at Trusted. I host events like this, virtual and live, as well as run our community platform, our Facebook group, The Modern Nurse, and then our internal in-app forum as well. So if you guys have any questions about this event or have any suggestions of future events, I'm your girl. You guys can email me. I'm always here for feedback. And for also, if you don't know about Trusted, Trusted is actually a travel nursing company that places travel nurses in all 50 states. But amongst that, we also have a wealth of resources from our blog talking about travel nursing, taxes, and things like that, as well as events like this on cannabis nursing, aesthetics nursing, and then our great event today on financial planning for student loan debt, which is a super, super huge topic in the world today. I know that we want Joe Biden to cancel them, but we are not there yet. So we have Shelby here today to talk to us about how we can pay this down. So without further ado, I will hand it over to him. Before, though, let me just make sure I did pin a message within the chat, but I will also go over this. There is a general section, so you guys can chat to Shelby, ask him any questions, or chat to your fellow attendees here, as well as there's a Q&A section. If you also want to jot those questions down in there, there's also an upvote section that if you ask a question and someone else really likes it, so they don't have to type it again, they can just upvote it, and I'll make sure I'll get to those, and I'll go in order and everything like that, so nothing will be missed. Also, if you are having trouble with audio and visual, our suggestions are to go outside of the event, use Chrome, and then also test your audio and visual that's on the button before you enter the event. Those two things should help with troubleshooting. And if none of those work, there's a little help question mark there. And also, I'm just a DM away, and I'll be answering anything the whole entire event. So feel free to reach out to me. But I'm so happy that everyone's here, and I'll let Shelby take it over now.
Sure, I appreciate it, Brittany. So, guys, once again, my name is Shelby Green. I am a holistic financial planner. So, what that just means is a fancy title for I handle all realms of finance, right? So, anything from retirement strategies to debt reduction, which we're talking about today, risk management, insurance, taxes, pretty much the whole nine. If it's about money, usually I know something about it. So, I spend a lot of my time, I work primarily with nurses, so nurse RNs, LPNs, travel nurses, NPs, CRNAs, PAs are most of my clients. And so my goal, especially for today, is just to educate you guys, not just about student loans, but also about how efficiently to pay them down. Maybe give you guys some ideas. I really like interactive presentations. So guys, definitely ask questions if you have them, because if you don't ask questions and you have one, then it may never get answered, right? So I really want you guys to not be shy. There's no guilt, no shame. I do these every single month, right? And usually if you have a question, everybody has the same question. They're just usually too shy to ask it. So today, do not be shy. Please answer or ask anything that you have, because I want to make sure this is educational for you guys. When it comes to money, usually the more you know about a topic, the easier it is, like literally. Right? So if you know a lot about taxes, usually you can pay less in taxes. You know a lot about student loans, you'll get your student loans paid off more efficiently, right? If you know a lot about investing, you make more money investing, right? So it's all about knowledge. And so that's what I want to provide for you guys today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you guys and get started on just a brief PowerPoint. So really quickly, I'm not like the biggest person with PowerPoints. Kind of like my idea with PowerPoints is I put some information on the screen and then I just talk about it. So you guys are not going to see like a bunch of written down notes or anything like that, but at least I can share my screen with you here and then we should be good to go. 1 second. All right. So I believe now my screen is being shared. So let me go here. All right, guys. So my company name, it used to be SAG Financial Group. It is now Ashford Advisors. I still own SAG Financial Group. So if you want to go on Google, look at my reviews, etc., you would just search SAG Financial Group. And so we've been doing this for about 9 years. Now, before we get into anything, I want to talk about budgeting because a lot of people don't know how to even budget to even start paying off those loans, right? So the first thing you want to do is figure out how you can pay yourself first. And here's exactly what I mean by that. So I base most of my budgeting strategies based on the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which if you haven't read it, I really recommend it. And if you have read it, awesome. Now, it's not really written by an actual writer. It's like basically how I talk, but written down in a book. So if you're like an avid reader and you're looking for someone who's like actual good writing and had a publisher, it's not like that, but it is a New York #1 best-selling finance book. So definitely highly recommend it. Okay, so when it comes to this topic, the idea of the Rich Dad and the Poor Dad was the strategy that they implemented, right? The rich dad had an 8th grade education and he dropped out of school. He had a bunch of odd jobs growing up, mowing the lawn, trimming the hedges, washing the cars, etc. But he had a really good discipline for saving, investing his money. Ended up doing that for a while, eventually started a business and became rich. Poor dad did what most Americans do or want to do, right? He got a master's degree education, education paid for actually by his parents. And on top of that, had a job with employer benefits the whole nine. However, poor dad ended up poor. So the difference between the two wasn't just their job, it was their mindset and their habits, how they're actually collecting and how they're actually doing everything. So with the rich dad, what he did was he paid himself first, hence, these fancy words on this, heavily detailed screen. So paid himself first, and then he paid bills and expenses. Okay, now when you pay yourself first, it's for any financial goal you have. That includes debt, right? Debt, investing, maybe some insurance, maybe some emergency fund money, etc. So he paid himself first, then he paid bills and expenses. Whereas the poor dad, what he did was he actually paid bills and expenses first, like most people, and then tried to save what's left over at the end of the month. Well, lo and behold, there doesn't happen to be much left over at the end of the month for most people, right? Some of these travel nurses, maybe you're getting these contracts where you're making 5 to 10 grand, maybe even sometimes a week or biweekly, right? And so you have all this extra money. And so how to exactly proportionate the amount you want to budget, pick between 10 and 50% of your income, right? 50% are usually people who want to be really committed. I don't usually let my clients personally go above 50% because then they're not living today, right? I want people to be able to have fun today, have fun with their money. Most of my clients are in their 30s or 40s. And so it's okay. I want them to have some fun still with their money. But my least committed clients are usually about that 10%. I say, hey, you're kind of sticking your foot in the water, but it's better than doing nothing, right? But at the end of the day, you pick that budget, that percentage of your income. So if you make $10,000 a month and you want to do 50%, that's $5,000 a month to go to your financial goals. So the first step to doing anything efficiently is first utilizing that strategy in budgeting. If you have your own budget strategy and you hate this one, cool, use that one. But this is one that's worked very well for my clients, about a 99% success ratio, right? You find the money. The money is there if you pay yourself first. If you don't do this strategy, you might still end up saving money, right? But it may be a little bit less than if you actually utilize this first, because who's more important to get your money than you? Comcast is not, your landlord isn't, Apple's not, Google, your subscription fees, Netflix, etc., right? You're more valuable. Okay, so that's the first thing I just wanted to get into real quick, briefly. First thing, but when it comes to budgeting, think about how much you want to commit, up to 10 to 50%. That's your budget. So if that number is $3,000 a month, do know when you make a list of your financial goals, that includes student loan debt, that $3,000 is going towards those goals. Okay. If you do need help with this, I offer obviously one-on-one consultations. I can help you, no cost at all. So we can talk about financial goals. We can get things really efficient for you. Okay, next thing, student loans. Okay, so there's 3 main types of student loans. And I don't know if this thing actually shows me while I'm also sharing. But either way, what I want to do is basically just walk you guys through the types of student loans that are out there. Okay, so there's 3 main types. Technically, there's a couple other types that exist as well, but those are very rare, such as things like the PSLF, which is the Public Loans Student Loan Forgiveness Program, right? So if you work for usually like a federal government entity, well, what they sometimes will do, for example, Kaiser Permanente, right? They're an example. What they'll do is they say, okay, listen, or if you work for the military, et cetera, they'll say, hey, if you make 120 student loan payments, we'll forgive the rest of your student loans. Okay, so that's an example of what is not going to be listed today. All right, now the 3 main types. Standard is usually going to be a 10-year repayment program. So they're going to come up with a monthly amount after including the interest you're paying to pay this down in 10 years. Okay, then you have the IBR. This stands for income-based repayment program. Okay, so I want you guys to really think about that, income-based. What that means is the more money that you guys make, the more that you're going to actually be forced to pay off. Yes, forced. Because usually this is going to be about 10% of your money that you're reporting to the government, right? So it's great if you're like, I'm about to go back to school because I want to become a CRNA or something like that. So maybe right now you're travel nursing to build money to become a CRNA. So you want to pay as much now, and then when you go to school, you don't want to pay anymore because you have no job. And then when you get out, that loan's going to go back up. But if you took a student loan to get back into that school, now you can choose what you want to do with that new student loan. So income-based repayment program, beware of this sometimes if you know your income is going to go up, because you will be forced to pay that extra amount. But if your income is going to go down, you may want to consider this program, especially for those who want to maybe become a CRNA or something like that, where you're probably not going to work while you're in school. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I don't usually recommend this for anybody unless they are a CRNA student, but there could be some useful times for it. Right, I've actually had somebody do this because recommended this just because they said they were going to be a stay-at-home wife maybe in 2 years. And then they're going to lose their income because they want to basically take care of the kid for the first 5 years. I said, okay, this sounds like the best repayment program for you. So that way, while you're not working, well, you don't have to make any payments, right? Then you have the extended repayment program. The extended repayment program is usually going to be 20 to 25 years. 25 is the most common to pay off your student loans. Now, guys, I want to talk to you like just between me and you now, like without having to worry about like looking at the screen. So here's the thing, guys, and feel free to ask questions. The government does not want you to do the extended repayment program. Whatever company, Navient, Nelnet, Great Lakes, etc., that has your federal student loans, they want their money back as fast as possible, right? If you loan someone money, don't you want that money back ASAP? I would. Okay. And so think about it this way. It seems like it doesn't help you to go extended because they show you how much interest you're going to pay, right? Oh my gosh, I'm going to accrue this much interest over the course of all these different years. Well, yeah, of course you are. You're going to get all that interest because of the fact if you pay it back in that long duration of time, of course there's going to be more interest paid. It's a longer duration that you have the interest. In standard, they want you to do this program because they get their money back the fastest and they force you to pay more. So which is best for you? This is what I recommend to everybody. First thing I want to explain with these loans. Okay, if you get the extended repayment program, everybody, this is important. If you get this extended repayment program, you don't have to pay the minimum. Right? So if the minimum here is, I don't know, I'm just going to type in here just because. If the minimum here is $500 a month, and let's just say the standard is $1,000. Okay? So standard's $1,000, extends $500 a month. Well, the standard one's forcing you to pay $1,000 a month. The extended, it says that you pay $500, but you can always put an extra $500 a month on there, and you'll pay it off in the same time you'll pay the standard one off. That's something I really want you guys to understand. The extended repayment program is my favorite repayment program because you're not forced to pay a higher amount. So if you have a hard month or a hard year, or you're making less money, or something happens in your life financially, you're not locked into this higher payment. You can always pay more on this extended repayment program. Okay? So don't feel that just because of the type of loan you have that it affects anything. It really doesn't. Because you can always put more to the principal. Okay, so I heavily recommend for most people, the extended repayment program would be a great refinance. Or if you're financing now, extended repayment program is great because I'm not telling you to pay your loan off in 20, 25 years. That is not what I'm saying today. What I'm saying is get the program and pay it off faster. That way, if you have a good month, you can pay more, but you're not locked into doing it, right? You're not forced to do that. Now, if you end up having a child or if you end up going to school to become maybe, NP or whatever the case may be, you're only locked in for $500, not $1,000. It gives you more flexibility and freedom of money, guys. Now you have that extra $500 a month. You can do anything you want with, including pay it back to your student loan. Okay. Now, before I continue, because that's a pretty big point, I want to just see if there's any questions. So, guys, feel free to, in this chat box, ask any questions you have real quick. I'm going to stop just for a second. Usually at this point, there's some questions, but maybe not today. So I'll give it maybe a couple seconds to see if there's any questions. Please don't be afraid of asking, because literally, like, my goal is for you guys to learn this stuff, and I want you guys to understand that the way these loans work. Okay.
Someone asked, does standard repayment also include a 5-year repayment plan, not just 10-year?
The 5-year repayment program, I mean, what you can do is you can do that with private loans. I haven't seen many federal loans that actually allow that. It could exist, right? But from often what I see, the standard is usually going to be 10 years. But with private loans, you usually can get special things like 5-year payoff, 3-year pay, all kind of crazy stuff. 15-year. Private loans are a little bit more flexible on that because of the fact that they're not federal. So with private loans, it's a little bit different. Also depends, are your loans subsidized or unsubsidized, right? So there's a few different things, but these are like the average of the loans. Okay. And I see a question as well from Tammy. Mm-hmm. When you pay extra, do you need to specify the extras for the principal? Tammy, that's a great question. Okay. What I'm going to say is I would. You don't have to, but I would. Okay? Because that's going to knock down the long-term interest you're going to pay over time. Okay? So that's a good question. I would. Just like when you pay a mortgage, guys. I want you guys to think of a student loan like a mortgage. I also want you guys to know your student loans are not maybe as big of a burden financially, maybe mentally, but financially as big of a burden as you think it is. Right? When you buy a house, nobody bats an eye at buying a house because they say it builds equity. Well, you got an education to get a job, right? That's building equity. Now you're making more money. Think of student loans that way. It was an investment, right? And a lot of people don't know what's a lot. I can say for my average client, if you're under 70,000 in student loans, under 70,000, you're better than the average. If you're above 70,000, you might be above the average, sure. But think of it like a mortgage, a house. Nobody tries to pay their house off in 5 years. It's financially stressful, mentally stressful, right? And so guys, take your time. You have a long time to pay these student loans off. And they don't really affect much as long as you make payments. They don't affect your credit. When you die, it doesn't go to your family, right? My goal for my clients is always to have the student loans paid off as efficiently as possible or before retirement. Same as your house, right? So don't think you have to pay a bunch of extra money to pay your house off either. You're going to see on the next slide some ideas. Okay. Tia had a question. Should you try to put more toward your unsubsidized loans first? Yes, you should. If you have an option, you should put it towards the unsubsidized first. Okay. These are good questions. Any other questions? And obviously, if you guys have more, feel free to ask them in the middle of the meeting, but I just want to make sure that there's no more questions on this topic. Okay. We're going to continue. So let's go back to this example here of this $500 a month extended repayment program. Let's use this as an example. Now, putting that extra $500 to equal this standard, that's not a bad idea. However, here's the most efficient way to do it. There are many different accounts that you can invest in that can grow your account faster than your interest can hurt you. So one of the reasons, guys, and I just flip it here so you can see my face when I say this, I'm a very personal person, but I want you guys to understand that you can grow money faster than the interest will hurt you. By doing that, you're actually building your net worth. You're building what you're worth higher over time. It's not just about paying your debt off really quickly. Because if you pay your debt off really quickly and do nothing else, then you have no money. Am I right? If anybody has any, think about this, right? Everybody here. If you have $100,000 of student loans and $100,000 in your savings account, would you use all $100,000 to knock your student loans off tomorrow? I bet most of you shaking your head no. You would not, because then you're broke, right? What's worse than having student loan debt is being broke, right? And so think about it this way, guys. That cash is what is powerful, but if you also use that cash to build more cash, it becomes even more powerful than your student loans. They just don't teach you this stuff. They don't want you to do that. They want you to pay the student loan off as fast as possible and give them all the money. Okay? So what I'm saying with that information, there's a lot of accounts where you can grow money. And I'm going to, obviously we'll go through this more in depth in a second, where you can grow an account. And this is based off an average rate of around a 7% return. Now it could be 6% and probably still beat most of your student loans, but I use 7% because that's usually the average. Okay. I'm not talking about a savings account. This would be an account basically made towards actual growth, right? So sometimes that could be in the stock market. It could be in a certain vehicle. It could be in X, Y, and Z. So now you put that extra $500 a month there. And then what you do is after, let's say 5 or 10 years, you take all the profits you made on your investment and you pay the student loan off all at once. So you're still paying that student loan off faster, right? It's more efficient because now you've grown money over here. How much money did you grow? Let's find out. I already have the mathematical example, okay? And I recommend this, by the way, for any debt. I say student loans, but this works for any debt except credit card debt. Credit card debt is the only one that's a little different because you cannot outgrow a 25% APR. You can't. That's a little different. So you guys want to always think about it as that being a lot harder to pay off as credit card debt. Okay. So when we get here, here's an example mathematically. This is a standard program of the same amount of student loan debt. Okay. The amount doesn't really matter right now for the sake of this because it's mainly going to be about the payments. If this person took 10 years to pay it off with a monthly payment of $812 a month, this was a real life example, they would have accrued $27,000 of interest. Now, I know you guys are thinking, ouch, that sounds like a ton of money. Why am I paying $27,000 for nothing? It's for something, right? Once again, it's for your education. But here's the difference. A 20-year student loan example, right? Now the monthly payment has decreased, but the interest has more than doubled. Okay, so now you're going to pay $60,000 of interest, and this is what they're going to show you as well. You're going to pay that much interest, and you're thinking, wow, that's like 3 of my cars, or 2, or 1, if you're a baller. Okay, so this is literally exactly what it's going to look like. Now, the difference is about $32,719 of interest. Okay, the difference between this 10-year example and the 20-year. Now, if I took the difference between this monthly $812 a month payment and this $542 a month payment, you get $270. If I invested that $270 a month for 10 years, instead of putting it towards my student loan, that extra $270, and I did the extended repayment program, my investment would be worth $45,436. So the difference of interest is $32,719, but your investments are worth $45. So you cash out these investments, at least $32,000 of it, but you cash out these investments, you pay off the student loan, all in full, and you still made almost $13,000 more than if you put that money straight towards the student loan. This is what I mean by paying it off efficiently. I want to share with you guys some information about finance. Right? Finance, think of it just like personal fitness. If you go to the gym and you work on just your biceps become really strong, right? They'll become maybe bigger, they'll be stronger, it'll be easier to lift weights, but the rest of your body suffers because you're not working on it. A lot of people, when they're paying off debt, they get into like this Dave Ramsey set of mode, or they get into this, I have to pay it off ASAP because it's a burden on my shoulder. So they go hard and pay it off really fast, or try to. They use all their money to put towards the student loans, And now the rest of their financial picture is struggling. You're not saving anymore. You're not investing anymore. You're not paying off your other debt. Right? If your goal was maybe to tithe at church or donate to charity, you're not doing that anymore because you're focused on paying these student loans off, and you're just going to say, well, I'll do this after I pay it off. Look, do it now. Do both. Right? When I go to the gym, same thing in the gym, right? You don't want to work on your biceps for 3 years and then be like, okay, time to do my chest. Then your arms go away, right? Right? And so just the idea, it's just an example, but that's the idea is you want to make sure you're well-rounded on finance. Now, a lot of you are thinking, well, I don't know how to invest. I don't know how to grow these accounts. The thing is, you don't have to know. You can educate yourself. You can do research, but this is why people like me have our job, right? My literal job is to help you find what account fits you best. That's literally what I do, right? And so, I'll obviously at the end of this whole entire thing, I'm going to basically, give you guys my contact information. We're going to go that route so you guys can get it. Or if you have a professional you already use, perfect. Utilize their services. Once again, we don't charge you guys any fees, right? And so literally you can reach out to us. We'll build you your own financial plan. We'll even figure out information about you specifically that's catered to you to figure out what account is best for you. There's no one size fits all account, right? A lot of people talk to me about, oh, what about this account? What about that account? Because they heard their friend talk about it or they hear it all the time. Well, there's no account best, once again. What's best for Stacy may not be best for Tammy or Tia or Brittany or Shelby, right? So figure out what account works best for you guys. Hopefully I'm not lagging because it says my internet connection is unstable, but I want to open the floor for questions on this end because this is a pretty big concept. Taking your extra student loan payment, instead of paying it actually directly to the student loans, you're trying to grow that money in some form of investment account. Doing this will allow you to pay it off faster and more efficiently because you'll have more money than you would have if you did it the way where you just put it all towards the principal of your student loan. Okay, so just to summarize what I just said, well, actually, before I do that, any questions? I hope there are, because this is like people do this stuff. Your net worth builds tremendously over time, just taking in the information and actually utilizing it. Okay, so I'm open for questions. Again, please type in that chat box if you guys have any questions for me. This is tea, by the way, not coffee. So you guys think I'm crazy drinking tea at 6:30 Eastern time. I'm not. Tia, that's a great question. Is there any financial risk? It depends is actually the answer. Okay. So Tia, there are many accounts that have financial risk, but there's a lot of ways to mitigate risk. When we mitigate risk, we meaning professionals, your chance of losing money is going to be heavily dwindled or non-existent. I can say if you do it on your own, there's probably going to be a lot higher financial risk than if you use a professional. Right? Usually professionals are licensed in this category. We do this all the time. This is what I do every single day. Okay. Well, you guys can ask questions in either chat. All right. But yes, Tia, sometimes there is financial risk, but the idea is to mitigate that risk as much as possible. There's even safe places we can put your money, Tia, and I don't want to obviously go too much in depth unless we have that many questions, but there's accounts where you can grow your money in dividends. When you grow in dividends, you're not really taking risk because just the fact that your money's there, parked in that account, dividends, just so you guys know, come from the word divide. Division of profits. Okay, so you're getting a profits from that company in the form of a dividend that does not have risk, and now you're receiving that dividend monthly to help you towards your financial goals, right? So if you don't like to take risk, there's other accounts we can put your money in that do not have any risk. Okay, but that's a great question. Just to answer Joy, the answer is yes. No cost. So what we do, just so you guys know the process usually, right? The process is we take people through a one-on-one consultation so I can get to know you more. So I go over what your goals are, what's important to you, and where you are today. And then in the second meeting, of course, what we're going to go over is a financial roadmap. I'm going to give you advice and recommendations on how you can achieve your goals more efficiently. So I work for about 22 different financial institutions. So the way I'm paid is actually through the financial institutions. So let's say you open a retirement account at ABC company, they pay me a compensation, so therefore you don't have to. Okay, so that's for sure the clarification, Joy. Good question. Bree, would those funds come from my paying myself first account? Yes. So I was actually going to get back to that, Bree. That's actually a great question. So remember I told you guys to pay yourself first. Well, the most ideal place to pay yourself first is going to be obviously your bank account, but I'm going to recommend you put it into what's called a money market account. If you don't know what a money market account is, think of like a savings account, but it's compounded monthly, the interest, and it has a higher interest rate. Okay, so usually before COVID, the interest rates were like 2%, but now they're like 0.5, 0.75 for most good banks. You can check with your own bank to see if they have a good money market account, but saving accounts are like 0.01 interest. So it's not really going to grow your account at all. You might as well always have your money working for you. The more your money works for you, the less you're going to have to work in the future. I promise you. And I'm talking about like 10 plus years, not like a get rich quick kind of situation. There's something called compounding interest, guys. You may have heard of this already, but just in case you haven't, compound interest is the idea of having interest on your interest, on your interest, on your interest over time. The more you have that account open, the higher your interest actually grows. So it's not going to be like you put 5,000 in and you get 10 bucks a month because you have 5,000 in. No, that 10 is going to then be 12, 15, 20, 30, 50, 80. And so that it really compounds that way, right? So I heavily recommend that. Some common ones are Ally right now, CIT Bank. These are electronic, I don't work for these companies, but these are electronic banks that they don't have any fees. So it's a no fee account, has more growth, it's compounded monthly, it's pretty nice, okay? Especially if you have like an emergency fund, okay? So those are all good questions, guys. Any other questions about what we just discussed? Okay, cool. So just to recap what we've talked about, especially this far, is first thing you want to do is you want to pay yourself first, between 10 to 50% for your financial goals. So write a list of your financial goals. Retirement, paying off debt, emergency fund, something else, whatever it could be, right? Save for a down payment on a house, right? Pick a budget, 10 to 50% of your income. When you get 30%, I'm going to show you how the math works, just in case, right? I like to pretend that some people may not know everything. If you make 10,000 bucks a month, all you got to do is times it by 0.30. Now you may know this already. Once again, I'm just being friendly to everybody. This would be 3,000 bucks a month that you commit to your own financial goals that you set for yourself. That's where you have that monthly amount. Then what you do, I recommended everybody use the extended repayment program. The reason why is because, not because I want you to pay your loan off longer or take longer to pay it off, but it's because you have more freedom and flexibility. Because now you're only obligated to pay a lower amount versus the standard, which is 10 years, you have a higher monthly payment, you're obligated to pay more. So if there's a hard month for you, a hard year, or if something that changes financially, that could be something that really hurts people financially. That's when they'll really start to feel that financial burden of having the loan, is because your payment is too high for your actual budget. Okay, so after you get that, ideally, extended repayment program, whatever that percent is that you want to put into your financial goals, right? That's your extra payment towards an account that's going to grow you money that you will then cash out in 5 to 10 years whenever you feel you want to do it. I use an example of 10 to pay your student loan off all at once, okay? I can give examples of accounts to you guys one-on-one. I can't say it publicly in my industry. The reason why is because if I tell you an account, you might get that account without any guidance. And if you go and get that account and it wasn't best for you, and let's say maybe you go and get the account and lose money, who are you going to look at? You're like, Shelby, you told me to do this. And I was like, no. We have to talk one-on-one for me to actually give you advice, right? And so I can't give you anybody like, hey, here's a specific account that you guys need to get for this purpose. Just because it may not be, there's like 8 different accounts I can name, and each one is not best for everybody. But at least one is good for everyone. Okay? So that's what we have so far. Okay, so I want you guys to also think, once again, that your student loans are an investment. You paid those student loan costs so you could become a nurse. And as a nurse, you're saving lives, right? You're helping a lot of people out. One of the reasons I even work with nurses is because I was in the hospital a lot. Okay? And this is when I was younger, but who do you see in the hospital most of the time when you're there? The nurse. I see an anesthesiologist maybe for 1 second, get put to sleep. Doctor goes thumbs up when I wake up. And then for the next 4 or 5 days, I see nurses, right? And I see how sometimes nurses are underappreciated, undervalued. I see how sometimes people treat you guys as if they're paying you money, right? You see this stuff when you're a patient, right? And you guys are also underpaid. During COVID, you guys are finally getting the pay you deserve. If you're a travel nurse or you're in crisis pay or et cetera. Right now, staff nurses kind of have the short end of the stick. Honestly, they do, because they're doing not exactly the same thing, but they're doing a lot of the same stuff, but they're not making nearly as much. So there's a big issue right now in the staff nursing community. Okay. This is why everyone's becoming travel nurses, though. This is why Trusted Health exists, right? But since COVID, this is a great time to make that extra money. It's a great time to hit your financial goals. Consistency is key when it comes to finances. Here's another thing that Brittany actually mentioned earlier, right? People always tell me this all the time about Biden or whoever who's in office wanting to pay off loans or helping you guys pay your loans off. Well, hypothetically, let's say you did. Let's say they did end your student loans. If they ended your student loans, wouldn't you feel some type of way if you just put all that money towards paying it down so super quickly, and then all of a sudden they just say, hey, never mind, you don't have to pay it no more. So all the people who decided to ignore their student loans or pay just the bare minimum, they benefit, right? So once again, the minimum, put your other money, invest it, grow your wealth, pay that off. Now, if you invested that money, 5 years from now, if your student loans were canceled, great. Now you've built up a lot of money. Now you can use it for whatever.
I think a lot of people don't seek financial help from professionals because maybe shame, maybe guilt, embarrassment.
I meet with 5 to 6 people every day. I've literally heard it all. So, but once again, guys, I want to, normalize talking about money more, because it really does help the financial side a lot, because people think they're doing a lot worse than they are. A lot of people are doing actually a lot better than they think. Okay. Joy, looks like you have a question. Joy, I did not say you would have to start anything. I was just saying, if you did, that other financial institution, they pay me, right? Because that's how I get my bills paid. But there's no fee to you, right? So you're not paying like $1,000 to talk to me. You're going to leave your checkbook at home. We're going to have these meetings, virtual, of course, or I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, if you're here, but virtual is usually what most people do. We'll then talk about your goals, how we can help, and we'll build you your own plan. Okay. I want to open the floor for more questions, though. Anybody else have any questions about anything to do with student loans? Also, if there's any people in here who want to become a CRNA, feel free to say something, because there's also student loan advice I have for you. Hey, Brittany, are you able to, it looks like Joy wants my contact information. Are you able to maybe put that somewhere like pinned in the chat? Maybe so they have it, because it looks like Joy said she has to leave. I can give it to you, but I think that might help as well. Here's some ways you can contact me. This is my email. This is my phone number. This is my business number, so you can feel free to text this as well. I'm in my 30s, so us millennials, we do text sometimes. Here, this is my website. Okay. And so if you want to look up some information on us, ashfordadvisors.net/SAG/financial/group, and you'll get all the information I think you would want there. Okay. Bree, that's a good question. No. The only way you can make a repayment change is if you do a refinance, right? You can't go from like standard and then change it to extended the next month, and then next year change it to IBR. That usually doesn't work, right? And so you would need to refinance it if you've already picked your student loan repayment option. But I do recommend for sure going the extended route. I can mathematically prove to anybody that it'll benefit you and also give you a lot less stress because your monthly obligation is lower, right? But that's a good question. Other questions? So I have about 45 minutes worth of information and about 15 minutes for questions. So, if you guys do have questions, do feel free to ask. I'll give you guys a couple seconds or so to maybe gather what your question might be. Please don't feel ashamed to ask it, right? Because this is a time where I can ask it and I'll answer it in front of everybody. So it's very transparent, right? I want to make sure you guys get the education that you guys came here for. Same thing if any of you guys are working for any government entities or federal entities and you guys are thinking about getting that PSLF, well, your student loans are going to get forgiven in 10 years, right? So you may as well do everything you can to just put all your other money other places besides paying extra to your student loans, okay? There's no need to rush it. If it's credit card debt, it's a little bit different strategy, right? Credit card debt has a higher APR, higher interest rate, and so you will pay a lot more interest on credit card debt. And so if you have $20,000 of credit card debt, that's something that you definitely want to tackle a lot faster. You don't want to let that sit for 10 years, right? I tell people usually come up with maybe a 2-year plan or 3-year plan so it's realistic. It doesn't break the bank. And at the same time, you're hitting some goals, right? Because hey, here's how we can. And I have actually, we actually can calculate how much interest you'll pay and all that kind of stuff too. So. And once again, this is our contact information. Awesome, guys. So if you found this helpful, please reach out to me. Once again, we want to help you as much as we can. There's other advisors on my team as well, right? So if I'm ever busy, we have other people who are just as qualified who can also assist. But if you reach out to me directly, I'll try my best to make sure I fit you in individually. Just say that you're from Trusted Health. That way I know. And if you say that, then I'll be able to prioritize your meetings since I obviously just gave you that verbal promise. Okay. Awesome, guys. So you guys have been great. Once again, I want to make sure I answer any questions. Do you guys have any questions to do with anything to do about finance? Brady, I don't know if that's okay. If they just want to ask any money questions, since they don't have any questions about student loans, I'll be more than happy to answer anything. So the CRNA question, what I said was first thing you want to do is you want to come up with 3 years of your living expenses, because usually you're going to be in CRNA school without working for about 3 years, right? And so what you want to do is first is come up with that 3 years of expenses. The next thing a lot of people do is they come up to me saying, hey, I don't want to pick on that student loan debt. There was another person here that said about the student loan debt, right? And so same thing. What I would say is keep that cash, because what if you need it by year 2 or 3 for your actual living expenses? You don't want to have had spent that already on tuition, right? So you want the freedom and flexibility of having money. So I would say get the student loan. If you really hate the idea of loans, pay it off as soon as you graduate. Okay? So as soon as you graduate, you guys can go ahead and knock that out. That way you're not accruing a bunch of interest. Or what you could do, same strategy, take your time paying it off if you're okay having that debt there. Once again, your extra money, we can invest it. You can grow your money faster, right? and your net worth will increase more over time. Okay, so hopefully that answers the CRNA question. I gave a slightly shorter answer just because I didn't realize that, I don't know how my mic muted itself. I guess I maybe clicked a button. So that's my fault. Okay, let's see. Other questions here I want to make sure I answer. Bree, you had a question about the money market account. So money market account, you only need one for your financial goals, right? So you can have one for savings. Savings is just your normal account, right? So if you have a fun goal, like let's say you're saving for a vacation, or you're saving for a boat, or saving for a jet ski, or saving for something else, that would go in just a normal checking and saving account so you don't mix the two. But money market account would be for your actual financial goals, right? Paying off debt, building emergency funds, saving for a down payment on a house, investing, such and so forth, would first go in that money market account. What I have a lot of clients do is they just put their direct deposit directly straight into the money market account. The reason why is because when the interest hits, it hits based off the amount of money in the account, right? So if you have $100,000 in that account, when the interest hits, it's based on the $100,000. Then you take money out of that account and ship it where it needs to go. Bills, checking, savings. You can now put it in those other accounts. The interest you got does not go away. It's based on the amount of money that was in the account. Okay, and so very powerful strategy. It's not money market account's not going to make you grow a ton of money, but it's better than nothing, right? I used to get like $40 a month from my money market account, and I was thinking to myself, great, so I can take myself on a wine bottle. I can buy a bottle of wine, right? I can go on a dinner, So like, there's a lot of different things you can do with the money, or you can save it, right? Like like I said, I'm really strong on people using their money. Have some fun, guys. It's perfectly okay. I know everyone thinks because I'm a financial professional that like I'm going to be like, no, never spend money on stuff. That's not the case. As you guys can see, I'm not like that kind of guy. So hopefully that helps you guys a little bit. Tracy had a good question as well. Should you close credit cards or just lower your limit if you have too many? Well, first, it depends on what you think is too many, right? For me, too many credit lines is 5 or more. So if you have 5 or more, what I recommend you do is first lower the limit to 0 on the cards you don't want to use anymore. Okay? Yes, your credit is affected if you close an account because credit card companies don't like to see that you close accounts. But don't feel scared to do it either. You'll get that credit back, right? And so don't be afraid holding on to the card the whole time just because. Now, you don't have to cancel it either. So if you have, 10 cards because maybe you got one from Sears, then you got one from JCPenney, then you got one from Express, and then you got one from the Gucci store. I don't know. You know how these companies offer credit cards. That might be when you have too many, right? And so in those scenarios, those little cards, the ones you don't care about, lower the limit to 0. Don't just lower it to 0 before you think about closing it out at all. Okay? It'll really affect you negatively if you close it and leave the debt there, right? Deborah, you mentioned about the student loan forgiveness being paid off in 10 years. It gets forgiven after 120 payments. 120 payments are usually done 12 months out of the year. So 10 years. That's what I meant, Deborah, if that answers your question. That's usually if you work for a federal or government institution. Okay. All right. So hopefully those questions helped. Sorry about the small technical difficulty. It happens sometimes, but Bree, Corey, all you guys who asked these questions, hopefully that helped a little bit. You guys.